Hari Om. Start the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are discussing the Iswara Swarupam, or the nature of Iswara or the Lord. So from the Vedantic point, he is both the material cause and the intelligent cause. And how does the creation occurs? It involves a visualization of the total creation, and visualization is based on the vasanas, the karmas of all the beings. All the beings in the whole universe put together is the total vasanas of all beings. That is total karma. And karma in a talking about is a subtler form, that is punyam and papam, and depending on that jivas are created, and jivas are as though created because they are in the potential form in the vasana state or in the causal state. When the Ishvara creates the total vasanas of all beings, including the individual minds and everything, as though in a potential form. To analyze this clearly, we can take an example of an individual when he goes to sleep. So Laya and Pralaya, they are parallel. So Laya from the point of Vyashti, Vyashti means individual, and Pralaya from the point of Samashti, that is a total, or somewhat parallel. And when I go to deep sleep state, we'll analyze later deeply about this deep sleep state, who slept very well and so on. But when I say I'm sleeping, what happens is essentially my whole antahkaranam, the buddhi and the mind and the pranas all essentially go into a subtlest form, unmanifested form, avyakta rupam, as though it is completely covered by the total vasanas. So I am in the state of that antakarana, that is the whole buddhi and the mind are not able to intellectually analyze what is a subject and what is an object. And subject, object and then relationships are all folded. I may be a professor in physics, but when I go to deep sleep state, no physics knowledge is available, no chemistry knowledge is available, no essentially the aparavidya is available. What about paravidya? We'll come back to that. The mind itself is folded, so even that I am a jnani is also folded, and it's only in the avyakta form. That means a chemistry professor will sleep as a chemistry professor, although the knowledge of chemistry is not available in the deep sleep state. A physics professor will sleep as a physics professor, and the knowledge of physics is not available because to use of the knowledge I need a mind for subject-object relationship, because I am a knower of physics, I am a knower of that has to be, and both are absent. In the case of a jnani sleeps as a jnani only, because the knowledge that I am a knower, because the jnanam is also belong to antahkaranam. That means it will belong to the mind and intellect, and that itself is folded. So even jnanam or paravidya is folded in that state. And in the case of Ishvara, says all are in the folding state. The vasanas of everything is folded into the avyaktam, and there it is only a folding because there is no ajnana for the Ishvara, and Ishvara is essentially in the subtlest form, and that is pure Sachidananda form, until the vasanas starts vibrating enough as though for explosion, for the creation to take place. And that's where the Ishvara state comes into picture in terms of the crystallizing the creation. So when here in the sloka it clearly says, essentially, Tasmat etat Brahma nama rupam annancha jayate. That Brahman is creating the whole universe in terms of nama and rupa, because the substance is himself. So Brahman himself, because you cannot divide the Brahman, because indivisible, so pure existence itself expressing in different forms, and that's what essentially implied. In the case of inert things, only the existence part is expressed. In the case of a subtle body, since a reflection can occur, a reflection of consciousness is also expressed through the subtle body. That means you have essentially, some are dull mirrors, some are not at all mirrors, but some are sharp mirrors or polished mirrors, and consciousness reflection depends upon the nature of the medium. And in the case of very dull, inert, it doesn't reflect, but it still illumines that, whereas the other ones, as the subtle body is there, which has a capacity to reflect, there is a reflection, and then again reflection depends upon the nature of the subtle body, how pure the body is, how pure the mirror is, depending upon that, the reflection of the light also. In the same way, the reflection or expression of Brahman is in the form of either pure existence or in the form of existence and conscious entities based on the medium. Medium is also, the Brahman himself is forming both but through the Panchikarana process, gross things as well as the subtle things also. All that have been discussed before, and therefore when it is expressed as the Brahman as the substratum, and therefore undifferentiated, undifferentiable and imperceptible, at the same time it is the very essence of the whole universe. Without that you cannot have creation, and with that only creation, and that itself cannot be seen. And we are taking example of the watch. It says, what is this watch? Does it exist or not? Of course watch exists, otherwise I cannot see. But where is the existence? Is existence a property of this watch, or a product of this watch, or the existence pervades only this watch, or something else also? So what exactly is the nature of existence? So we said existence is not a property, and that's where the Sat is not a property, because some Acharyas say that Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam are properties of Brahman. They cannot be property. Why they cannot be property? We also mentioned, if Sat is a property, then the property should be different from the locus of the property. And that means the Sat is a property, the locus should be different from Sat, and different from Sat is only Asat, because then we are saying Sat is a property of the Asat, which is essentially contradiction, and therefore Sat cannot be property. Sat is the essence of it. But where exactly is the Sat? Where exactly is the existence? Existence pervades the whole watch itself, because every part exists. And existence of this watch is not different from the existence of the space, because space also exists. So space exists and watch exists, and I cannot see the existence of the space or existence in the form of a watch I can see, but existence itself I cannot see. So existence itself is indivisible and across the board, but each form exists, and that's what is called Namam and Rupam. In the Nama Rupa, Rupa are the attributes of the object, and Nama is the name that is for the object, one object different from the other object. So when I am differentiating, or when the Brahman is becoming a different, differences are due to Rupa. That means attributes, and the attributes should have a locus, and therefore the locus of attributes, each attribute being different, therefore we say each object is different. So what is the essence? just as the essence of in science is electrons, protons are essence, but each property of each object is different depending upon how they are packed, isn't it? So therefore gold is different from iron. You can say gold properties are different from iron, and gold is the substantive for the gold ornaments, and iron is a substantive for iron tools, if you say, and therefore substance are different. I say no, because in both cases the substantive is only fundamental particles, even from science point, and from the fundamental particles, the gold is not different from iron, iron is not different from a mud also. So from the point of the very essence of the particles, I cannot differentiate. It's only the packaging, and the packaging makes it different properties. In the same way, the packaging of the same differs. Packaging essentially involves a creation, and that how it's been packed in that form, and that's what is called nama rupa jayate. Therefore, when I see something in the world, I am seeing through my mind, through the five senses, I am perceiving the world. And what I really perceive is only attributes of the object, and this we have discussed in terms of how Vedanta Paribhasha addresses how perception occurs. In a sense, I am getting a reflected attributes of the object. This is what actually I concur, because in agreement with the science also, I am getting a reflected attributes, just as when I am looking at my hand, you are not looking the form of the hand itself. Form belongs to the hand. I am only looking at the reflection of the form as the light falls on it, and the light comes to you, and the reflected light with the shape of the form. So it's a reflected form, that means reflected attributes of the object only I perceive, and that forms an image in my mind, and that forms a vritti. And this will go into analysis of the mind as a panchakoshas, but essentially it forms a vritti, a thought, and that thought is existence of the object as though transferred as the existence of a thought in my mind, and I am conscious of the thought in my mind by illumining the thought, and that's how the knowledge. And naming means, nama means knowledge, because naming is knowing, and knowing involves knowledge. And therefore, chair doesn't say I am a chair, it doesn't have even name, doesn't know, but I have to name this is a chair and that is a table. How do I name? A form of the chair is different from form of the table based on the form and the properties, and that's how I am naming it. That's what is the definition of any object, involves attributive content. A chemist wants to find out what is this material. He tries to analyze the new chemical, from the properties of which he will define what the chemical is. So that is rupa. Rupa means attributes or the qualities of that product, and on that basis I am predicting what is a name. Name and form is the essence, but the substantive is only Brahman, and that's exactly what the teaching of the Upanishad is. Aitadatma medagum sarvam tat satyam sa atma tattvamasi swetaketo. In the Chandogya Upanishad, in the 6th chapter, it says, Aitadatma midagam sarvam, or idam sarvam. This everything, idam sarvam means this, the whole nama rupa, or whole attributive content of the all objects is all objects, and this whole entire universe, that is called Jagat, and what I am seeing is only the substantive of that is Aita Atmam. Aita Atmam means the essence of it, that is the very substantive of it, is nothing but the Satyam, that is Sat, that was discussed from the beginning of the chapter, where Sadaiva Saumya Idamagram Asid, existence alone was there before creation, and existence itself became many. So many, essence of many is nothing but Sat, and that part is only one, and that is you. Oh Svetaketu, Tattvamasi Svetaketu is the teaching, and that's what is implied here. Nama Rupam Annam Chajayati. So Etad Brahma is nothing but whole universe is nothing but names and forms only. I cannot see substantive. When I am dealing with the names and forms and the attributes coming to the mind, so one has to be careful. In this sloka it says it is the Brahman who created Nama Rupa, not the individual mind. Because a lot of arguments are there for idealism or idealistic theory. It says mind perceives and mind projects the universe. No, it is the projection of the Lord, and mind is only grasping the attributes of the chair. So I don't create a chair and then see the chair. So it is a creation of the Lord. I may create a chair from the assemblage of wood and all that, that's okay. But I take the proper material and then only assembling in the form of a chair. But the wood is also created by the Lord only. So I don't see, I don't create and then see. It is a Lord creation. Therefore, when I realize also what I say is I do not destroy the Lord creation, I cannot destroy the Lord creation, so I will still see as long as I have the capability to see in terms of perception. So as long as my eyes are working, I am able to see, and the mind is there, I will be able to see the world whether I am a jnani or ajnani. When for a jnani, he knows that is nothing but Brahman and that is nothing but my own self, it's my own vibhuti, and that's what that means. The essence of it is myself. The essence is Sat aspect of it, not in terms of the creatability of each one. So the mind that perceives and the world that is being perceived are ontologically of the same order of reality. So the mind doesn't create the universe and then perceives it. That's called idealistic theory, whereas I perceive the creation that is done by the Iswara. Whereas I also can create, that's called subjective creation, when I create and project my own likes and dislikes on top of what I see. So here is a cake. Oh, I don't like this cake. I like the other cake. So these likes and dislikes are superimposed my own value system on top of the Lord's creation. That's called Jiva Srishti. So one has to differentiate what is Jiva Srishti and what is Iswara Srishti. What is the local mind creation? What is the global mind creation? What is Iswara's creation versus what is Jiva creation? When a Jivan Mukta, when I become a Jnani, what I do is essentially the samsara is gone from my point, because my likes and dislikes are essentially or nullified or essentially made into is my vibhuti only. Means I have a control of my likes and dislikes. I don't depend for my happiness on my likes and dislikes. If it comes, I enjoy. If it doesn't come also, I won't suffer as a consequence, and that is what is called the Jivan Mukta state. So we have to differentiate what is the individual mind projection of a Nama Rupa and the global mind projection of the Nama Rupa. When I am in the deep sleep state, when I am in the dream state, I may create my own creation, but that creation is also based on the Iswara creation only. Because what I have knowledge of, I have a knowledge of hairs, I have knowledge of horns, and I can create hairs with horns in my dream. Doesn't mean that there are real hairs and horns in the waking state. So even though it is unreal in terms of the waking world, I can create, because it's only assemblage of whatever the known things are, and that's also part of the Jiva Srishti also. So I can create even in the waking state some of the things, and that's what is creation of any engineer or anybody is doing, is assembling things that are already there. So when we are creating an automobile or an aeroplane, we are assembling that are already available in some form into the shapes that we want to utilize, where I have to use intelligence in assembling so that it is functional. That is the creative ability of a jiva. That a jiva alone can create. A spider creates its own net because that knowledge is already intrinsically given to the spider in order to do it. Whereas for a human being, he can develop a much more creative ability, because he has the buddhi and he can use that in order to create wonders, and that's what is essentially the glory of a human life itself. So what is that as a human being I have to do? I have to make the universe most beautifully, or also I can make ugly also. That's what you see by pollution and all that. That is by the jiva. It's nothing to do with Ishvara. Therefore, one has to be careful in terms of what is given to me as a gift for the Lord, and use that for the beautify the creation, and that itself is the very purpose of life itself also. And all that is to be understood. With that, we will complete now the Jiva Swarupa, Iswara Swarupa, exactly what is the difference between a Jivan Mukta and Ishvara also. Ishvara can come down, it's called Avataram, that is essentially incarnation of the Lord. Incarnation of the Lord, he doesn't have vasanas to coming down, but it is the samashti vasanas pull him down, because he doesn't have his own vasanas, because he is a realized person. He doesn't have a samsara. So therefore, if at all he has to come down, it is by the samashti demand he has to come. And this is what in the Bhagavatam it says, the goddess Earth and along with the other gods go to Vishnu and request, we cannot solve the problem, please come down and solve the problem. So therefore he has to come, so a Sarvajna has to come down in terms of the solution, the solving a problem. In the what way he solve the problem comes down, in what form he comes down, depending upon the problem that need to be solved. So he takes whatever vesham or costume is conducive to solve the problem. And if you have many problems, he packs everything together and efficiently he comes down. Like for example, he came in the form of a Krishna to solve many problems, to satisfy the demands of devotees, to destroy the wicked people, as well as to teach Bhagavad Gita also, and to the humanity through Arjuna. All that is implied in the Iswara Swarupa. Whereas a Jnani cannot do all that. Jnani is only recognition that Aham Brahmasmi, not Aham Ishwarosmi. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the totality that includes Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara, the very substantive of all the three. That is the understanding, that Sarvajñatvam, because he has understood one that pervades everything. All that is knowledge is implied in the Jiva evolution. With this, we'll stop, and next we'll take about now back to the text in terms of how we can establish or how to gain this knowledge, and what kind of discriminative faculty we have to develop in order to reach this state that has been described as the identity equation. Says Brahma Atmaikya Bodham. What kind of, in order to gain that knowledge, what preparations are required, and that's what we go through in the rest of the text of Viveka Chudamani. This will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.